Next in the timeline is Golden Abyss. It takes place a few years before Drake's fortune and begins in the middle. Nathan Drake is scaling a temple on the side of a mountain somewhere in Central America, which is swarming with mercenaries hired by Jace and Dante, who have ordered to kill Nate on sight. Orders which they carry out by firing an RPG at him while he climbs the side of a temple. The story then flashes back 2 weeks, revealing that Nate had been hired as an expert by Dante to investigate a dig site on a ridge in central Panama. At the dig site, they encounter Marissa Chase, Dante's partner, who as a result of her distrust had tailed them. Dante receives an erratic radio call from Robert Guerrero, the leader of a revolutionary army based in the surrounding forest, and leaves. Both unimpressed that Dante had not informed them of Guerrero's presence, they find the remains of a group of Spanish conquistadors who were murdered via poisoning by forces unknown. The only clue to why the soldiers were killed is a grave marker carved with a symbol Nate recognizes as being of Visigoth origin. Chase reveals to Nate that she possesses an amulet that Dante doesn't know about, and refuses to let Nate examine it unless he agrees to her offer of partnership. But before they can learn more, they are interrupted by the arrival of Guerrero's men. As Chase refuses to use a gun, Nate kills them all, and the two attempt to escape. It is revealed that Dante has been working with Guerrero, and Nate tries to escape by attacking the soldiers, but he is clubbed into unconsciousness. Nate wakes up in a warehouse that also happens to be on fire. Escaping, he finds himself in a shanty town that acts as Guerrero's base, and meets up with Chase. She explains she escaped Guerrero after a brief interrogation and set the warehouse alight as a diversion. Nate decides to rescue Dante and escape, but Chase refuses to leave without her amulet. So reluctantly, Nate agrees to help her retrieve it. After dispatching a number of Guerrero's guards, they reach his office where they learn that Dante has already cut a deal with him and given Guerrero all the research he and Chase collected. Nate and Chase retrieve the amulet from Guerrero's office and narrowly escape the compound while being shot at. Chase takes Nate to the house of Vincent Perez, her grandfather, and explains that he found the amulet among the ruins on the ridge and spent 20 years trying to figure it out. The year before he was diagnosed with terminal cancer, which made him desperate to solve the mystery, he contacted Dante, who was able to negotiate with Guerrero for access to the site. But 3 months ago, he disappeared, and Dante took over the excavation. In Perez's study, Nate discovers the symbol from the grave marker on the cover of a book about the Cide Cidades, an obscure Christian religious order with roots stretching back to the Visigoths. When the Islamic Moors invaded Spain in the 8th century, legends tell of 7 Spanish bishops who set sail with the treasure of Spain. Apparently, they went on to found 7 cities of gold, and the Cide Cidades was an order dedicated to finding these cities. Using Perez's research, Nate is able to translate the words written around the edge of the symbol. The sword of Stephen shall bear witness to our sacrifice in the chamber of the 7 fathers. Perez also noted that this chamber would have been a holy place, a sanctum for the secrets of the order, and a potential location for it. Nate accepts Chase's earlier offer to be partners as they depart. Arriving at this location, Spanish ruins next to a large sinkhole, Nate and Chase enter catacombs at the bottom of the sinkhole and find the chamber of the 7 fathers, along with Perez's camp and his journal. The journal sheds more light on the Cide Cidades, specifically referring to the Frere Marcos de Niza, a Spanish priest who is also a high priest of the Cide Cidades, who was noted for claiming to have discovered the 7 cities of gold. As it turned out, Marcos lied, and his 7 cities were simply Native American villages. When the journal refers to Marcos' guide, Esteban the Moor, Nate realizes the sword of Stephen is the sword of Esteban. After solving a puzzle, Nate and Chase discover Esteban's tomb and find the body of Vincent Perez in there. While Chase mourns her grandfather, Nate takes the sword of Stephen. Engraved upon the blade are symbols, which Nate takes charcoal rubbings of before he returns to Chase. He tells her that when they find Quivera, it will be Perez's discovery, but she turns him down. It will be their discovery as partners. They're interrupted by the arrival of Dante, who takes Chase hostage right before Guerrero arrives in time to hear Dante insult him. Guerrero then calmly drops Dante off a balcony and forces Nate to hand over the sword of Stephen while he leaves with Chase as a hostage. Dante regains consciousness as the fall wasn't fatal, and he and Nate work together to escape the sinkhole that was rigged by Guerrero's explosives. They kill a multitude of Guerrero's men trying to save Chase before she is taken, but when they finally get out of the sinkhole, they are too late. Dante vows to go hire his own army and go after Guerrero, while Nate seeks help from Sully. Nate has assembled the charcoal rubbings of the symbols on the Sword of Stephen, revealing a map to the location of the Temple of the Serpents, which Friar Marcos stated guards the gateway to hell. Nate and Sully make their way to the temple, while Dante's mercenaries fight Guerrero's revolutionary army. Along the way, Sully falls down a hole and busts his leg. He suggests that Nate should go on alone while he steals a helicopter to be their getaway vehicle. Nate continues alone to the Temple of the Serpents and repeats the scene at the start of the game. Nate survives the RPG blast and makes his way into the caves beneath the mountain, where he learns that Dante's mercenaries have Guerrero trapped in the lower caverns. Nate descends to a large doorway at the base of the cave, where Guerrero's men have Chase captive and are setting up explosives on the supporting columns. After Nate deals with them, Chase refuses to leave. Quivera is just behind the door. Nate realizes that her amulet is in fact the key to Quivera and uses it to open the combination lock on the door. Beyond the doorway, the caves go deeper until they end with a large lake which they must cross. Beyond the lake is another doorway, again opened with the amulet, granting access to the Golden Abyss. This cavern has numerous enormous veins of gold all over its walls, and in the center is the Throne of Gold. Sitting on the throne is the corpse of Esteban, impaled through the heart with the dagger of Marcos de Niza. Esteban was a Sede Sedata's offering, a sacrifice of blood to seal the gates of hell. Before Nate and Chase can take the dagger to use as evidence to rewrite history, a Geiger counter in her pack indicates the gold is radioactive. Dante arrives and reveals he knew about the treasure being radioactive and plans to strip mine Quivera and litter the gold through the black market. Nate and Dante get into a fistfight, with Nate being the victor. Nate and Chase leave Dante by the Throne of Gold, and Chase detonates the bombs in the caverns to seal it. As she and Nate flee, the caverns begin to collapse, presumably killing Dante and any of his mercenaries still in the cave system. As they reach the exit, Guerrero appears and fires an RPG into a stone column, causing it to collapse and fall onto Chase's leg. Guerrero reloads the RPG, all that is left of his army, and says he has only one cause left without his army: to die with honor. Nate confronts Guerrero, and during a fistfight, he is able to trick Guerrero into charging out onto a burning bridge, which collapses and plunges the general into the abyss. Nate returns to Chase and manages to lever the stone block off her leg before the two flee to the exit, where they find Sully waiting with his helicopter to winch them out. They land on the pyramid in the valley to splint Chase's leg, and while Sully checks the chopper has enough gas to get them home, Nate reveals he saved Chase's amulet. She takes it and hurls it into the jungle, stating that Marcos was right, it belongs in hell. Sully interrupts before the two can kiss, and as they head back to the helicopter, begins telling his story about the nurses in Buenos Aires.
If you're gonna break your leg, Argentina's the place to do it.
You know, the last time you told the story, they were from Sao Paulo.
Hey, would you just let the man finish?
Trust me, you don't want him to finish this story.
Anyway, the little one, her name was Maria. Oh, Maria. The lips on that girl.
And her brother was Isabel.